Hello, YouTube. My name is Dolly, and my pronouns are whatever the hell you want. I don't give a fuck. There's been a lot of talk lately about transgender women or biological men in women's sport. So I thought, as a pre-op transsexual and self-identified man in a dress, I'd share my views. So Boris Johnson, I know you, the Prime Minister of the UK, hopefully not for much longer, recently said in an interview that biological males should not compete in women's sport, which is funny because historically the view of Conservatives has been that biological females shouldn't compete in men's sport. What do I mean by that? Well, back in the good old days, there were no women's sports. Women weren't meant to compete in sports at all. So what changed? Well, there was no specific rule that women weren't allowed to compete. It was just considered socially unacceptable. And because there was no rule against it, some women decided to compete. So, in 1902, Madge Syers entered the World Championship for figure skating and came second. And in 1903, women were banned from the Women's Championship. In 1992, Zhang Shang won the gold medal in skeet shooting. And in 1996, women were banned. In 1920, women's football was thriving in the UK. And then the men came back. And in 1921, women's football was banned. Pretty clear pattern, right? So, Conservatives don't want women to play sports, especially considering women were consistently beating the men. So what do they do about it? They ban them. But then, the feminists come in a massive uproar, and now the Conservatives are in trouble. So what do they say? Oh, well, let's make a separate category of sport for women so that men won't feel emasculated when women beat them. But we'll say it's because actually men are biologically better at sport than men, and they're stronger and faster, and it's not fair on women to be put in the same category as men. They'll always lose, always. Don't look at her history, just assume, just believe me, they'll always lose. So they created two separate categories, men's sports and women's sports. And everything went fine for the patriarchy until the transsexuals came along and started saying, we want to compete too. So what do we do about this now? That's the big question. I don't know about you, but when I was a child, historically the view was that we should desegregate sports because women are just as good and as strong as men. This was pretty much agreed on by all feminists back in the day, in the ancient history of the 2010s. But recently it's changed. Certain people seem to think that women are biologically inferior to men, and not just right-wing Conservatives like Boris Johnson. People, so-called feminists like J.K. Rowling are saying the same thing, and well, it's all just a bit confusing, isn't it? As for me, well, I don't really care that much. I've never been good at sports. Yeah, my PE teachers took one look at my limp wrist and said, that one's a write-off. Well, thanks for chatting, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.